We are live.
We are live. We have to see. Apparently, we have to press again to go live. We are live, Bambos. Just you and me now. And it's been a very musical day for me because we have Michael McDonald on. And Ronnie asked me who Michael McDonald was this morning. I said it's a lead singer of the Doobie Brothers. So she thinks that I'm going to be with the Doobie Brothers singer today. So I've been listening to the Doobie Brothers all day today.
I love it.
But this is not the Doobie Brothers. This is not the Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers. This is the Michael McDonald who I made friends with, I guess, a few years ago through Facebook. And he posts some really interesting, fun, curious stuff. And about a month and a half ago, he posted a audio clip of himself discussing I don't have a choice and how people use that as a state to put themselves in a victim-like state. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have him on an hour and discuss that? And I thought we would do that on
A Wonderful Chaos.
I just wanted to mess with you. My God. Oh, so
let the games begin.
Yes, that's gonna say. What are you gonna do to me now?
So we had Michael and Andy talking behind the scenes, and it was like two people, like
piece of the same pod. Is that what you want to say?
Yeah. So I was just witnessing.
Okay, what do you see? What did you see in similar in both of us that made you say that?
I hope you guys have an argument.
Good.
I couldn't see the space where there will be an argument. Or
I'll call him a motherfucker and see what he does. I don't care. I already know what he'll do if he does what I'll do.
He looks like the kind that would just say, "Yes, I am."
Of course.
And now what?
Of course he would. That's why we're the same. It's because if you embrace everything that is, then all of a sudden you're just sort of there, and whatever is, right? So, as I said, and I mentioned yesterday when we were kind of leading into this segment, was that as I've read Mike's material, I've just found it very, very similar to what I'd be writing. I don't doubt he would label it, because I don't necessarily label it, but it would be very much associated with what a non-dualist sort of teacher or someone who's sort of a practitioner in more of a non-dual state. For those that are listening and have no idea what non-dual means, that's just people who say, I'm not going to get stuck in ideas of right or wrong, or have thoughts of good or bad, and not be unconscious that my projection creates a reality. And if I'm not aware of that, then all of a sudden I get in the loop. That's a simple condensed version of what it is. And I'm sure 20 people would have different versions of what I just explained. But so I would say, so Michael is very much in that area in his writing. We can obviously discuss. But the thing that I thought was great is that I follow someone like Michael, enjoy what they post. And then I think they post something that's like, cool, it would be great to spend an hour on that topic. And the topic that was specific was, I don't have a choice. And then the state of mind, which perpetuates itself into the victim role, right? Which we know very well, because once we don't have a choice, all of a sudden we sort of project onto ourselves that we're a victim of our circumstance. So in that way, it goes along that line of how do we deal, especially in this time of COVID, with situations where we do feel like we are the victim of our circumstance. And yet, by saying that we don't have a choice, we actually create a reality which reinforces itself. So without further ado, I think it would be great to bring the lead singer of the Doobie Brothers on. Unless you have something.
Slow down. How are you? Like,
no, Bambus, I don't want to talk about how I am.
Slow down. What's going on? Like,
I'm good. I made a resolution to do 3 chapters of the book.
Yeah.
Vocal, the voiceover of the book. And I'm struggling to get through 1 chapter a day at the moment. Hearing my own voice and fixing all the corrections is like, this is not joyous at all.
Oh, really?
No, because I didn't realize how many pauses I take in each sentence. So as I read from the book, I say, hello, and he went to the store and found something. And so like every time there's a pause, I've got to like edit out that little space of time so that it sounds like a fluid sentence.
I find that really peculiar, because when you read something to me, you just seem to flow through it. Like you say to me, I'm going to read a passage for you, and I see you go into that space, you read it, and I don't feel there's that robotic thing. So
it could be.
Is it possible you're trying to do it perfect?
It could be. It also could be I read it from a prompter, and as I was reading from the prompter, it would go up at a certain speed. And as I'm reading it, sometimes I had to like push up the sentence so that I'd move to the next sentence. So sometimes the prompter was determining how fast I would read. Yeah. But if that's my only problem at the moment, like let's agree that there's no real problem. How about you?
I feel a bit disconnected.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh, just so much to do, so little time to do. And we've had quite a lot of transformational discussions, which have, like, you put seeds in my brain. So they've been also growing.
Growing, and do you feel like they're growing in a sense that you have a spaciousness to explore, or is it kind of like the topic today where it's a bit like
spaciousness to explore, but because I'm not attaching anything to it, or it's new territory, I'm kind of stepping back and just allowing it to unfold instead of trying to control it.
Beautiful. I like that.
So it's just stepping into unknown space. My brain can't grasp anything right now. So I wouldn't say I'm disconnected. I just can't grasp.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm disconnected from the way I would have normally dealt with it.
Yeah. But you feel very grounded, as I see. It's a difference in how, when we talked and you would sort of go into more of like a zombie-like state of looking without necessarily being present. It just feels like you're present, not knowing, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Let's get Michael on now. I'm done.
Good. You got what you needed.
Michael
McDonald, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Why did you separate from the Doobie Brothers? That's where we'd like to start out, because my wife is now listening, thinking that you're the lead singer of a famous band.
I had to take on this whole new life. Like it's like a new image. We'll leave the whole music thing behind me.
Yes. Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
As I mentioned, I've been following your post for years. It really feels, it is probably years now. And we just got connected because I think there were like 30 mutual connections. And then I said, hey, with 30 mutual connections, it might be fun to see what this guy's all about. And it was really fun to see what you were doing. So thank you for finally giving me a reason to ask you to be on.
You're welcome.
What is your practice or your background? Like, what is it that you would say, if you were to project onto yourself, what would you say you do?
Like the image of myself?
Yeah.
I'd say that I'm a transformational coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Any practice specific?
You mean like a specific modality?
Yeah.
Nope, not specific. A lot. It's sort of a hot mess of spirituality and practicality and working with people all across the spectrum, from corporate to people who are doing deep, like energetic and spiritual and emotional work.
See, I told you.
What was the thing that got you into this path?
So originally, I was a software developer. So I kind of went to the extreme of that life and that level of development. Like the left brain was fully formed and the right brain was just in an attic disused. And so I got to Silicon Valley and I was just working from home as a contract software developer. And that was pretty much my life. And at some point, something kind of snapped and I realized that I wanted to get a life, that I wasn't happy just doing that. And then I started branching out. Actually, acting was the bridge for me from like getting out of just doing tech work and getting into psychological stuff, becoming social, meeting people, having emotions, and being fascinated with what's going on behind the scenes within people's experiences. And that ended up being formative, like moving towards coaching, which I hadn't heard of yet. I remember Actually, like one of my friends within an acting training I was taking, because I did like professional acting training. I remember that's where I first heard the term life coach. And as soon as I heard the term, I just had this weird, silly image of someone just hovering over you saying, live, you can do it. It's like, breathe in, breathe out. And yeah, it's kind of like that to some degree.
Yeah, I always find those are the worst clients. Like, because that means their determination is dependent on my ability to get them doing something, Like,
yeah. It's like it's evolved from there. It's like they don't actually need me to convince them to live, hopefully. Yeah. Usually I'm working with higher functioning clients than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it progressed on. Like I started discovering relational work in San Francisco, going to like authentic relating events. Got deeply involved in those communities for a while, and that's where I learned coaching originally.
Nice. Yeah, because we have like interaction with a lot of people in the authentic relating genre. Bambos also has authentic relating courses he runs as weekly in Amsterdam. So Jeff Lieberman has done a lot of that work, and and also we have Alton's son who we have contact with. He hasn't been on the show yet, but I don't know if I can stump. Alton, I guess, because everyone seems to know Alton. He's sort of a iconic
Who's
figure.
Alton?
Alton's in the book. He's in the chapter that I wrote about. Sometimes not needing to learn something is actually the actual greatest gift you can give yourself. Right.
Ooh. Yeah. Like both Alton and Jeff are friends from
I can imagine.
From different eras.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Alton, we've had contact and I was there and we had this beautiful moment when we were sitting across the table. He had his camera on recording the session, of course, because that's what he does. And he was looking at me and then he said he wanted me to help him understand how to help someone get free of their thoughts or, just find freedom. And he said, how do you do that? And I said, by not answering that question. And then and then he started tapping his camera like, is this on? Because I want to get this. And then he said, that was the best. He said, he said, what did he say? He said, I said to him, do you see how confused you are right now? And he says, yeah. And I said, yeah, well, I'm just as confused, but I don't have a problem with it. And that there's a beauty in that. Yeah.
That's the doorway. Like my conversations with Alton have been in that direction as well.
Obviously. No doubt.
Has he recorded you too?
Let's see. Well, I've coached him a little bit. But
he records everything though, doesn't he? I mean, he pretty much has that camera around his neck.
I'm pretty sure they were recorded. It wasn't like in person though. It was like over Zoom.
Oh yeah. He's tried to pull me into his Zoom calls, but I've sort of, I've kind of always had a reason not to be there.
Yeah, that's his thing. He always has to have more people in the room with him.
Yeah.
Like he always wanted people in the sessions. Like, can I bring this person? Can I bring this person in?
He's a networker. He's one of these perfect networker types.
Yeah.
With the topic, right? Now, I mean, I assume you picked the topic because I don't have a choice topic, because you get a lot of the people you're working with that say that to you.
Yeah. Well, actually, I picked that topic that day because it's one of the little things that someone said in a coaching session that day. And like, every time I have a session, there's like 20 topics or books I could write just from what I was noticed in that session alone. But I remember it kind of annoyed me that like anyone would say that. When one of my clients said that, I don't remember like which client it was or which session, but it was one of those flippant things of like, I don't have a choice. And I remember I corrected them. I'm not sure in which way in that instance, but I just realized like, that's not a useful phrase. Like I couldn't think of that being a useful phrase for anyone.
Just to share, if someone says that in one of my coaching sessions, I always say the same thing. You're right, of course, because you just said it.
There's like, well, if you don't have a choice, then that becomes true, and if you have a choice, then that becomes true.
Yeah,
it's like language creates your reality, creates your world. And I think like after recording the little bit about like I don't have a choice, there's also having compassion for people who actually believe that. Like that's important. that's territory that I've been relaxing, spreading into more, is having more and more compassion for the people who really, really believe like these limiting beliefs. They really believe what they're thinking.
When you say belief in a weird way, it almost is so much their reality that like it almost isn't even a belief at that moment. It's just so true because they've created that reality. So yeah, I know what you mean. Because if you validate it, you're stuck because now you're supporting someone and almost, you'd say, enabling them to stay in this idea of themselves, which will never help them per se.
Yeah. It's like, how can you acknowledge someone's reality without validating it?
Yeah.
And sometimes without cluing them in, that you're not fully agreeing with them enough so that they can feel that you're with them.
Yeah. I always make fun of them. So I have one go-to. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. I'm usually like smiling and laughing, like as I'm agreeing with people, which sometimes pisses them off.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that confusion aspect of like, what's going on here?
Yeah. But in line, because I really liked, I listened for a second time today. After listening to Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers 5 times, I put on your audio again. And and what I really enjoyed was that you really tied in really beautifully how once someone utters words like that or that mimic it in some way, they've already basically created themselves as the victim. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'd love to speak to that for a moment because I find that really interesting.
Yeah. Like when you say, I don't have a choice, or any like similar like victim belief language, there's sort of like an energetic plop of just like, okay, it's creativity shuts down. Like suddenly you've said it and you're not allowing yourself to be creative, to have agency, to have any responsibility. It's just like, oh, I don't have a choice. I have to. And there's like this to it. And what I realized when I like got annoyed at people doing that, because I want people to have this open state all the time, but that's an attachment as well. That's a belief. There is that grain of truth. That's actually where I'm finding compassion in all these territories. Like everywhere where there's something that like transformation land wants to get rid of or to attack or to never have again, like saying, I don't have a choice. What's the good intention there? What's the little bit of wisdom? What's the little bit of truth within that, surrounded by a narrow view of the world? Because there's something similar to I don't have a choice, which is there being an obvious choice. Like, I don't have a choice. I have to pay my rent. I don't have a choice. I have to live, being some of the common ones. Where it's scary to even consider other choices being available, or even consider the bad choices being available, the horrible choices. When we
I think I was talking to Bambos about this the other day. Was that I sent him a video this morning. It was was it a TED Talk?
Yeah.
It was a TED Talk, basically, that was just a very interesting when the brain works in scarcity, then the IQ goes down immediately. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you're in a scarcity mode, it'll just appear, and you're more reactive in your decisions because you're trying to, just survive. There's no creativity in survival. It's just, how do I get through today?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I refer to that as like going down the ladder of consciousness. Like everything's tighter, darker. It's black and white. It's like further down, like I don't have a choice. I have to do this, or I have to just like get through this, bear this. Everything's tragic. Everything's dramatic. Everything is like the world is happening to you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Well, Balmos would never go down. Balmos, you'd never go down that place. You get more disciplined, actually.
Yeah, like I'll see my mind going into stories, and I always say that I drag myself through the mud. I drag the mind through the mud by actually I'll create the discomfort so that I stop trusting this. So I'll see it being active, but then I'm more grounded in living. But it doesn't mean there's no fear. Fear might be there, but it just doesn't own me.
Yeah. It's like, how identified are you with your thoughts in the moment determines where we're at in terms of consciousness.
So let's slow that one down.
Let's
just slow that one down, okay? We could do the whole show on that one line alone. And I think we had this discussion 2 days ago as well. I mentioned this to you, of course. And I'm always tinkering because I'm always laughing at once you kind of see your thought and not be your thought, there's a lot of freedom. But you can't, in the paradigm, if we say like people live in one reality where they're very attached to their thinking, then if others don't attach to their thinking the way that they do, they'll often get frustrated with the other parties. So in some ways, to allow yourself to not be your thoughts is an act of revolution in some ways. And yet, now you're free, but you're free and society doesn't like you that way because in some ways they need you to identify so that they can put you in the holes and the boxes that basically they need to so that their identify is more comfortable, right? And so when you say that, like, it would be, I'm assuming from your levels of consciousness and some of the thing I saw on your Facebook feed, then I'm assuming that would of course be one level of consciousness where one is no longer attached to their thinking. They just see it as random, spurious things going on in their brain. Is that something obviously that you're also working within in your own training and so on?
Yeah, like it's a level of like having space around my thinking, and actively developing that more over time. So like I'm not as identified, but part of it is just the humility of I'm always identified with thinking. It's just getting subtler over time. It's higher level, more useful, more inclusive thinking. But the very nature of my experience of reality is made up of thought. So I can't actually escape it, but there does seem to be this direction where it gets more conscious and things go better.
Less reactive.
Like less reactive, more creative, feels better. Less sticky. When things happen, I just sort of know what to do, and I don't brood about things as much.
My mentor would always say, freedom is the absence of choice.
Just interesting.
You don't have any choice. It's almost like, because in his mind, he made distinguishers. He said that if you've made, there's a difference between making a decision and making a choice. If you've made a decision, it excludes future choices. So if you've made enough decisions in your life, when confronted with a situation, you actually don't have a choice because the decision that you've already made is defining what makes the most sense at that moment.
I can see how that creates a lot of clarity and simplicity. But not necessarily a freshness in the moment of what direction to go.
True.
Like one of my favorite phrases of probably thousands is run to the edge of the cliff and stop on a dime. I think it comes from Merido therapy. And like that you can like make a decision, strongly go in a direction. And in any moment, it's possible to have an in the moment wisdom of, oh wait, this is changed now, all of a sudden. Like it's that permission to change your mind, which like a lot of the people at the empowerment level, it's like, no, you make a strong decision and you stick with it. And that's the definition of freedom. This is the freedom of having something within you, having wisdom within you, which is smarter than you are.
Yeah.
And smarter than anyone's personal intelligence, but it's that knowing and allowing that to guide your life.
Yeah.
But first you need to really be able to separate that knowing from all of the reactive thinking.
Yeah.
Because the reactive thinking is clever, and whatever you think is wisdom, it will change. Like the reactive thinking will change its shape to look just like the wisdom that you've been learning about.
Yeah, you know what I find, like coaching really smart people is like the best, because they always have another argument on another argument on another argument to say why the thing is that they're not going to do, because they've already rationalized why it's not going to work anyways. And like, and you know, like you're sitting there like, but you haven't done it. You have to, and you don't even know what the experience is because you haven't had it. And yet you're really clear that it won't work. You know,
because there's like so much going on up here.
This speaks to something else that, you know, I'll do with clients every so often, is when you're talking about the indecision, you know, the I'm sure you also are aware, it's quite one of those techniques that a lot of people know or aware of, is where you'll say, okay, make a decision if you want to go for the new job or if you want to stay in the old job. And then you flip the coin, say heads, you stay, tails, you go. And then whatever they choose, you know, when it lands, you say, okay, which is it? And then they say, well, I go. And then the first question is, how do you feel? Because it's the first time they get the opportunity to feel that experience of having made the decision. And then how do they feel afterwards? And then if they say, I don't feel good, then you say, then it's probably best to stay at where you are. Or if they're really excited, then you're like, okay, that sort of already tells you that's what you wanted to do, but you're just afraid to say yes to it.
Yeah, it's like I love that one. I actually learned that one like from my father, who's a therapist. Like he wrote about that, the coin flip. I use a similar trick. I learned a similar trick with Enneagram 6s for some reason, or at least one particular Enneagram 6, where they're like the few types of people that I'll actually tell what to do. Like, do this, so that they have, like, once I tell them to do something, it's sort of like that coin flip. Either they agree with me or they disagree with me. It helps them get contact with what they actually want by being told what to do.
Yeah, isn't it nice? I do the similar. I know I'll be very forceful in saying, okay, I'm saying this, and now it'll be the question, how do you feel with that, whatever that thought might be, which is really beautiful. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and often what I'm doing is just being a truth meter for like hearing whether they've actually already made a choice.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is just saying, like, it sounds like you've already made your choice. And they know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's beautiful, wonderful, of course. Yeah.
When you're with people and you're listening to them, how are you listening? Are you actually taking in everything that they say, or are you feeling their words? Like I've been observing you, and I'm kind of curious how you're taking in information.
It's like a whole, like masterclass or year of how to listen. Variably, like in different circumstances. Ideally, I sometimes describe it as like listening on all channels, which is almost like just noticing anywhere when I'm not listening and seeing if I can relax that and open there. Like if there's too much concept going on, or if I'm not feeling my body as I'm listening to someone, being with someone. There's listening to how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking as part of receiving what someone else is giving me. And there's even listening to the environment, like even accepting that sometimes as interesting information. Just a thing like from process work, like even if incidental things are happening around, that's part of what's going on. It's like, how radically open can I be while still having the capacity to notice little things and perhaps like hold on to them, like when they say a word or a phrase. Like if they say, I don't have a choice, for example, I might like grab and hold on to that, but still be trying to stay open at the same time. And often, like with a client, I'll sit back and listen for a while, just knowing that so much will emerge in the space that's created by really good listening. And that's where the magic can unfold. I notice that's what you guys are doing for me right now. I hope having that space.
I had 3 thoughts I attached to, and then I connected back to you, and I can't remember what those thoughts were.
Yeah, they might not be important anymore then.
They're not.
Yeah, there's so many times where because I have this mixture of coaching, I'm more receptive, I'm more listening because the genius is in the person across from me. And I also have this role of teaching and ideas and sharing. And sometimes there's a little bit of tug of war between them, where I'll have lots of clever ideas come up that I want to share, or like analogies or stories. So I remind myself, like, no, like hold those back. It's like, do not interrupt the magic that's unfolding in front of me by trying to be clever.
Yeah. There's one thing that happens every so often, and whenever I go into a new sort of a business environment, and then somebody starts to say, Andy, let me brief you on each one of the people here. And I'm always like, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that, because then I don't really meet them wherever they are. I have a preconceived notion of whatever it is you think they are, and if I take any of your preconceived notion, they'll feel that, and then all of a sudden I'm not going to connect with them anyway. So, but I see that's very masculine trait. Like, I can figure these people out. I can say what it is that makes them tick, and if I know that, I can manage them. And that energy, of course, it's not that energy doesn't also have a place. But I notice when there's listening going on, then the more energy that exists that thinks it knows, the less there's any real listening, because it's only trying to validate a preconceived idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I was thinking there is like the amazing, hideous amount of abstractions and maps that we put on people and ourselves and the world, where we try to understand everything.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of maps. I mean, that's basically what we're talking about right now. They're fun to geek out about as long as we don't believe them.
Yeah.
But when you're just present with someone, when you're not putting a projection onto them of who you think you are, or assuming that how they behaved yesterday, or even how they've behaved for the last couple decades, if you're not putting that on them in the moment, it creates that space where they can be anyone, and you can see more. You can be with them more. Like it helps. Like you're listening more.
Yeah.
When you're not.
I always have this other thing that happens as well, which is the real mind fuck, is that I don't see that people are aware that they create the reality in the other person half as much as they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always laughing, like they behave a certain way, and I'm always thinking to myself, do you have any clue that how you interact and create actually is a manifestation of the way they react to you? So is there any consciousness that maybe this loop you're experiencing is you in the loop and not just them?
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard for people to grasp.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's one of those like giant leaps. And culturally, part of it is because like culturally, like we've all been taught that people make us feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Like that the world is creating our experience.
Yeah.
And even if we start to point towards like some subjectivity, they'll sort of acknowledge like, okay, well, yeah, it's a little bit me, but it's really them.
Really them.
They'll jump to the extreme and they won't even feel the subjectivity.
Yeah.
The fun thing is that people actually look. at the subjectivity and like really wonder, okay, well, how subjective is it? And they actually like courageously, because this is like terrifying to the ego, because it's stepping away from being the ego.
Yeah.
What if it's 90% projection? What if it's 99% projection? Like, what if, as like a mental exercise, it's all projection?
Yeah, your brain has to shut down a little bit on that rabbit hole, because what does that mean? You can't take anything for granted anymore.
Yeah. Usually someone's ready to look in that direction after they've just after they've just healed something, after they've just let something go.
Yeah.
When they've just like, oh my God, that was like, as soon as they have a realization, more from a subconscious level, like it was ready to click and the energy moved and they healed, and they're like, oh my God, I was just making that up.
Yeah.
Then actually you can keep on going. It's like, what else?
Yeah. What else?
As made up as that.
Yeah. That's the scary part. You could just go down the whole reality of your life is just a projection that you've created and then, reaffirmed through every belief. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have something that came in from Gina Lee. I don't know if you know Gina Lee or not.
I don't think so.
So many people think that they're stuck in a specific role or thing, thinking that it's the only way to continue forward their desired trajectory. They are in so many ways to get from point A to B. Don't be miserable doing it. Yeah. Basically reaffirming the whole message that in some ways, once we assume that there's only one way to get there and then we're struggling to do it, that we lose the creativity. No.
Yeah. And it just feels bad.
It sucks. Yes.
Like that's one of the signs. And there's something subtle here where like being higher consciousness isn't about feeling good all the time. There's a way to feel horrible and be at a ultra high level of consciousness.
Yeah.
But it's like you're not believing the horribleness.
I'd like to stick with that for a moment, because that's not given enough credit. Like, does it feel good? Like, just does it feel good? Because in some ways, like you could lose a lot of money. You could actually screw it all up, but you may be like, I'm always frustrated when someone is living their full joy and then another person goes in and starts to meddle while they're in their element. They may be doing nothing, screwing it all up, whatever standard the other person uses to base that judgment on, of course. And then they go in and start saying, but really, are you doing it like that? Don't you think you want more followers? I think you could do this better. Like without any consciousness that other person didn't even have a question.
Well, that's just like fixing.
Yeah.
Like, that's people going around thinking that they need to fix other people and fix the outside world in order for them to be okay.
Obviously.
Which is an example of like, it comes from this direction. Like the experience comes from them. It's like, oh, well, it's like, and it's people being helpful as well. Like trying to be helpful, and like often being helpful is great. Often being helpful is helpful just by definition. But for people who are in higher levels of consciousness, being helpful is actually trying to drag them to sort of like this middle level of consciousness, trying to drag them back to their level of consciousness, of problem solving, of fixing things.
Yeah, and then how do you help someone who basically the paradigm they're working from is that my life only has purpose and value if I'm helping somebody, and the fact that you actually don't need to be helped? And that's the question that each person has to answer for themselves, of course.
Yeah. And usually like psychologically, those are the people who they want help themselves. They might not even know it. And they've just projected like their unmet needs out on other people. It's like, I'll just take care of all of you. I'm fine. I'm going to take care of you. Yeah. Very common within the world of coaches and counselors and therapists and such.
Question for you. Where are you struggling at the moment?
The very moment?
Yeah. It could be this moment or just in general. I wanted to ask a question that I thought Bambos might ask, but I wanted to ask it instead. Is that a fair question?
I was going to ask him about his childhood.
At some point, Bambos and I have been discussing a lot about the format of the show. And you see me, we'll talk and I'll enjoy and we'll kind of engage. A lot of your thoughts are thoughts that are going into my head, and Bambos has heard it from me. So in some ways, like he's looking always, I'm speaking on your behalf, but for connection. So and if we don't ask questions that create connection, then basically it never deepens, because we stay on this sort of more more intellectualized understanding. So I enjoyed that I could use him in order to ask other questions.
Awesome. In a way, I feel closer to Bambos by you asking the question for him. It's weird. Probably not as close as if he asked it, but
beautiful.
Am I struggling right now? What comes to mind is like more immediate. Like I just moved into my new place in Oakland. Like July 3rd was my moving day. So, and it felt much more challenging 2 days ago, because I was like awoken by a neighbor playing music downstairs, whereas before I had absolute silence. I was kind of triggered. It's like, oh, something's been taken away. It's like, and part of me is like, okay, that's the privilege showing. You have this amazing new place and you're complaining about some noise now. But yeah, it's like, moving into this place, adjusting, rearranging my physical life, and sort of wanting to be settled, wanting everything to be perfect is one of my little psychological quirks. I like having all my routines pristine and designed and optimized, so that I can like just quickly be ready and flow. And there's a lot of chaos in my space right now. But even in the moment, it doesn't feel that bad. I feel pretty good in the moment.
You mentioned about light and how your last place had a lot more light windows. How is that impacting you, if at all?
A little bit. I have beautiful views of trees and green now. Before, I was on the 20th floor in one of the high-rise apartment complexes in downtown San Francisco. So I had a view of the city. It was the skyscrapers, a little bit of the bridge, sort of like this power executive view, tons of sunlight. And I think that did a lot of good, like me getting to absorb that energy for a couple of years, be there for a couple of years. I was really tired of seeing all these straight lines and a lack of green. So I'm enjoying having that. And sometimes the sun is kind of intense. I'm almost west facing, and there's times I need to block out the sun, and I'm not surrounded by sunlight anymore.
Yeah.
But so far it's been pretty good.
That sunlight affects me a lot. Like if I don't have sunlight, there's some, I wouldn't call it depression, but like I always use that word, before you enter a training or something, there's that word priming. You kind of prime your brain into a state just by where it is physically. And I've noticed that if I'm in front of an ocean, or if there's no obstructed view and I just have view, that my mind kind of goes more into a wondrous state. Like it can't attach as easy, because there's nothing there to necessarily to attach to per se.
Yeah, like I find that for myself as well. And part of me wonders how much of that is the sunlight and how much of that is the psychology of like having that much light. How much of it is like there's a meditation direction of like actually looking at open sky and having a spacious awareness. It's one of the things I got to develop in the previous space. And also part of me is just wondering, it's like, how much is this vitamin D?
Yeah.
Because we get that from being in sunlight.
I've got another question I'd like to ask you on behalf of Bambos.
Okay.
Why?
I love that face. I love that
so
face.
You can ask.
That was the best face.
Andy loves playing.
Or do you have a question from your inner Bambos, which is different from the Bambos who's next to you? Your projection of him.
my brain goes to how's your sex life, like, but also while you were talking earlier, when I asked you the question about listening, I was trying to take you in through different parts of myself. And if I close my eyes and I just listen to your words, I felt a bit ticklish. And then I'd open and look at you, and your eyes were really like going left and right, left and right, left and right. And there was this like, like I could almost see the little boy in you, which was really amazing. But how is your sex life?
You did say, we asked you before you came on if there was anything you didn't want to discuss.
He doesn't look shocked.
He's not shocked.
I'm not really shocked. Totally paused right now. Like, not much going on.
Paused.
What? Oh, paused. I'm sorry. Polished. I was thinking that's an interesting word to use.
Yeah, that'd be a strange description. Yeah. Not polished. But paused. Nothing's going on. Especially like with like COVID. I was like starting to get interested in like dating, seeking partnership and such, like just before COVID started. But as soon as it started, I just lost interest in that direction, focusing on other things. So the eternal flame is still burning, but not using it.
Nice. I can ask the question now, unless you want some more time to think of another one, Bambos.
I wasn't thinking. I was just being.
Nice. Bambos has asked a question to all of our guests, and I asked him to stop asking it.
Oh, shit.
But for you, actually, it's a very appropriate question because you talk about it quite a bit in your site. What are your morning rituals?
Ooh.
I would ask it differently.
I'm sorry.
What are the rituals that you do to claim space from your mind on a daily basis? So it might not be morning, but it might like a consistent thing that you do.
I have a lot. They're significantly abbreviated right now after the move, so like they're gradually coming together. But like this is actually, it's one of the things I teach. I'm actually currently leading a group program called Masterpiece Days, where I'm helping other people do this because I have like before the move, I had like a 2.5 hour morning routine with all sorts of little details, and it's a sequence. And it's so like autopilot now. It's like even hard to like remember it. I need to start at the beginning and imagine myself going through the morning in order to remember it. Like I listen to, like first thing I have a playlist I listen to in the morning when I wake up. There's like a quick little posture I do. It's like bathroom, weighing myself, I have this morning drink. It's just like good for the gut. I do a little bit of yoga, stretches, and Wim Hof breathing, cold shower, meditation. And then when I get to the computer, I actually have a checklist that I go through, and I just go like bit by bit, putting off for the longest period of time, putting off any inputs from outside minds, any distractions, like not looking at Messenger, not looking at email for a while, definitely not checking news until later in the day. There's a couple people, like videos, a couple teachers that I'll sort of take in each morning, like read a blog or watch a video from. Some like logistics, filing things away, keeping track of like what I did the day before, clearing the slate. One cool thing is I have my schedule for each day is already set before the day. I do very little last minute scheduling. So I'll even set alarms for all of my appointments for the day so that I can ignore any beeps and buzzes from my phone and leave it on do not disturb from almost the entire day. Just there's the alarm every once in a while, and that indicates that something's coming up. So that helps me have even more focus, even more freedom from the phone during the day. Yeah, and like the post is in there, like writing the one little like nugget of wisdom to Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Then checking to see if there's any emails that are perhaps like really quickly should be answered, like clients having emergencies or such. Then it goes more into like coaching in the morning. Another sacred routine that I have is the nap, somewhere around noon, which feels amazing. There are some times when I first started napping, I would wake up from a 20-minute nap and I would start going through my morning routine because I was so rested that I accidentally thought that I was waking up in the morning after a full night's sleep.
Wow. You thought you slept through the night or something?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, no, it's like I took a 20-minute nap, but I was so rested from that nap, I thought I was waking up in the morning rather than just waking up from a nap, it being early afternoon.
Oh, nice. I thought you might have thought you slept through the whole day and woke up the next morning. That would be kind of freaky.
Yeah, that would freak me out. So like, what happened?
Michael, like I would say Andy struggles the most with his food and his body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone has one part of their life which might be a challenge. What would that be for you?
Good question. It's something like perfectionism. Doesn't seem as extreme as that word now, but
if it's anything like your backdrop, I would say it is.
Well, thank you.
Love it.
I still think that I can predict what will work and what won't, and I still like way too much plan, like over planning, over preparing, overthinking, rather than just doing things. Yeah, it's like perhaps over planning and often like talking myself out of things. Like there's so much I could be doing if I wasn't pretending that I knew whether it would work or not. I think that's probably one of the biggest ways that I'm still limiting myself, is I still think I can predict the future. And another part of me knows that's like there's like a ridiculous amount of potential of things I could be doing.
Would you say that like if you write a post or if you do a little podcast, like you record your voice, would you say that you might record it several times because it needs to be perfect, or that you're like, whatever?
Yep, I would record it multiple times. Like there's some audio posts that I've been doing, and like whenever I do one of them, I'm usually recording like 3 or 4 different instances of doing it. And for a podcast, I probably would like even to a greater degree, because even more perfectionism there. And in contrast, that's one of the reasons that I love conversations like this, where there's not an attachment to staying on topic or to like getting in like a list of points that I want to teach. So I also love these because I don't fall for that so much within these conversations, like within like podcasts and interviews and within coaching sessions. I've got the freedom to just go anywhere. But when I'm creating a thing that's going to be put out in the world, that's going to be like evergreen and is supposed to like cover a topic, I want it to be the perfect one.
Yeah.
And when the traps is, it usually goes well, and I get positive feedback, which has me do it more.
Yeah. I was listening, I have the second book I have coming out at the end of next month. And I'm listening to the audio version I mentioned earlier, where I'm listening to my own voice. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this isn't that good. Like, Oh my God. Like if I could state it over again, I would have done it so much more precise or so much. But there's not really a problem with it per se. It's more like a humorous laughing, like, oh my God, like how did I do that? It's a very funny process. Yeah.
That's the first recording you're talking about.
I only do one recording. I don't, I'm kind of, I edit it so that it sounds better, but I think, at some point in life, this show was a byproduct of us saying, hey, let's just do it. Right. And then the first few shows, we shoved a iPad in a helmet and we interviewed the helmet. Right. It was really that's how we began.
So you would actually be here right now.
Yeah. You'd be between us and we'd be discussing, nothing worked, of course, because you weren't even looking at us. You'd be looking at the the screen. But that was the fun of this sort of it was a wonderful chaos. And that's the way we just really love the fact that we didn't need to overly structure it and try to create this, even the guests that come on, we invite people from across the board. In fact, we have Jane Elliott, who did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, coming in 2 weeks. And it's the first time I'm like, oh my God, we gotta prepare for that one. We can't just bring her on and say, hey, Jane, how are you? Come on,
Yeah, now you've got to up your game.
Exactly.
It's got to be serious.
It's got to be serious, for God's sakes. We can't have a good time with somebody when they're on, right? How was your 5th time on Oprah? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
he's like, watch one of her interviews.
Yeah, I told him today, watch the interview, because she terrorizes anyone who interviews her when they use sort of dual type of speech. So I said, we got to prepare for this one.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is when you have someone that lives in the world of like, let me give you the absolute so that you get to experience a contrast. She's very much in the absolute. So she understands very well this sort of ingrained racism and institutionalized racism, from calling things like the White House and just all of the subtle things that are so subtle we would never even think of them as racist. That can't be racist. It's literally a White House. What are you going to call it, right? So you call it the president's quarters. You call it another, So the funny thing is that when you're working with someone or interacting with someone who really has taken such a strong stand, and because of that strong stand, heightened the consciousness of people who really were like not willing or able to see that there can be that stand taken, they have an important role to play in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's actually been like sort of a meta debate for me for my teaching and like how I want to like be in the world. Like how extreme do I want to go towards really pointing at something in ways that might really polarize a lot of people? It's sort of like, how much do I want to polarize people?
Yeah.
In order to have the people who hear it really hear it, and have the people who don't want to hear it don't want to hear it.
Yeah. And then how much, but on the other side, how much in you saying it is going to influence their thinking anyways. If they're so ingrained in a belief, then they're just going to either you validate what they already want to see and believe, or you create construct, or what do you call it? Constriction. I just saw my friend Rob came on. Rob is my one black friend, because we all need those one black
Rob
friends
your
in our
token?
life. No, he's not. He's actually my dear friend. I've lived out of the U.S. for the last 30 years.
Wow.
And Rob and I worked together in Vienna, Austria, where if you think there were few people black people in the U.S., go to Austria. And he was a dear friend, and he's a great sax player who I also play the saxophone, and he let me stand next to him with my saxophone so that I could play and then not play whenever I couldn't, and then it looked like I was actually playing. It's very nice. Thank you for that, Rob. You gave me the feeling that I actually could play the saxophone on a stage, so it was very much appreciated. Yeah.
And hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob. Love you. Yeah. So we're coming up on our hour. Is there one thing that would be nice to end with, you feel, Bambos?
No.
How was it for you to be with us in this way of interacting?
Really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is just how I love hanging out with people.
Anything surprising, or you thought, wow, I didn't expect that?
Not. I think I expected Bambos to speak more too.
Bambos and I have been having a lot of discussions off air on that subject.
So I don't feel like I got to know you as well, Bambos.
We've been discussing roles.
Yeah, there's the quality of your presence, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
Like being with me in my sharing. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
We've been discussing, because a lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, we were sort of figuring out our format. And a lot of it is sometimes Bambo says, Andy, I'm just okay just being here and letting it be. And if I don't have anything, I don't say anything. And then I was like, well, it probably would be good that we share that as part of our format so that everyone understands that I'm kind of the consciousness of the show. Andy, yeah.
I think it's more, oh shit, they're talking from a space where I need to go now and figure out what I want to say. I don't really want to fill up the space with, just because I'm here, I need to fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just tuning in, and if there's something there where I feel my heart beating, okay, that's the question I'm going to ask.
Cool.
Yeah. And I've also been channeling a little bit when I see that in the past, when I felt Bambos has wanted to go a little bit deeper, then I'll also kind of let that part of my brain sort of play and say, oh, that's where Bambos would maybe like to see us go. So then I'll channel Bambos, even if he's not necessarily speaking. It may not even be correct per se, but at least I'm doing my best to utilize his brain in my head. Yeah.
I wonder what it'd be like for Bambos to be channeling a bit of Andy.
I'd find that boring.
Owning it. I love it. Hallelujah. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you for
Good
being
to
on.
meet you too. Yeah.
Send you all the best, right?
Yeah.
And
thank you.
I look forward to following your post. Any place that people should come if they want to see more from your activities and things? Where would they go?
So like, friend me on Facebook. Michael McDonald, not the singer, the one that looks like me. And my website's authenticintegrity.com.
Nice.
Authenticintegrity.com.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I can be emailed at michael@authenticintegrity.com.
Yeah. Or michael@doobiebrothers.com.
I don't even know who the Doobie Brothers are. I'm going to look this up.
I can't forget. Haven't anymore.
Yeah, people sing the songs at me, but I don't actually know Michael McDonald songs. Like I might barely recognize his voice if I heard one, but yeah. Despite the name, I'm not.
Things will never be the same again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
Morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Bye. Hey, Vam.
Hey, And.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. I feel like that in the morning too.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
looking in the mirror.
Who do we have?
Tomorrow we have Alex Fredericks. And
Smokable Hemp.
Smokable Hemp. He's actually an entrepreneur. He comes up with these really funky, interesting ideas, and he just works through them. So he's been posting all this really clever advertising for Smokable Hemp. He's like the only person I had to interact with 5 times in order to create a title for a show, because the first title I wanted was I'm a drug dealer. And he said, no, Andy, I'm really not a drug dealer because hemp isn't really a drug. So I kind of had to educate myself before he even came on. So that was, so he'll be on tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thursday, Eastern Western Philosophies, Eric Scheiner, incredible guy who I've been interacting with for some time. He's head of he was head of what do you call it, the Andy Warhol Museum. And then he went from there and he works at Pioneer Works in New York. Pioneer Works, if you haven't seen it, they combine art and science. Really special stuff. Thank you. It's my forehead. And on Friday I've got ADHD with Sana Kole.
Yes.
And she wrote a beautiful post about being diagnosed. And we said, hey, let's have her on and discuss what life looks like after being diagnosed and how things have changed for her. So that's it for today.
Have a beautiful, what is it today? Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday?
Evening, morning,
Wherever
afternoon.
you are. Thank you. See you next time on A Wonderful Chaos.
Adios.
Bye-bye.